Heroes of Olympus, Book 3, The Mark of Athena, by Rick Riordan. Chapter 19, Annabeth. They didn't make it to the ship. Halfway across the dock, 3 giant eagles descended in front of them. Each deposited a Roman commando in purple and denim with glittering gold armor, sword, and shield. The eagles flew away, and the Roman in the middle, who was scrawnier than the others, raised his visor. "Surrender to Rome," Octavian shrieked. Hazel drew her cavalry sword and grumbled, "Fat chance, Octavian." Annabeth cursed under her breath. By himself, the skinny augur wouldn't have bothered her, but the 2 other guys looked like seasoned warriors, a lot bigger and stronger than Annabeth wanted to deal with, especially since Piper and she were only armed with daggers. Piper raised her hands in a placating gesture. "Octavian, what happened at camp was a setup. We can explain."
"Can't hear you," Octavian yelled. "Wax in our ears, standard procedure when battling evil sirens. Now, throw down your weapons and turn around slowly so I can bind your hands."
"Let me skewer him," Hazel muttered. "Please." The ship was only 50 feet away, but Annabeth saw no sign of Coach Hedge on deck. He was probably below, watching his stupid martial arts programs. Jason's group wasn't due back until sunset, and Percy would be underwater, unaware of the invasion. If Annabeth could get on board, she could use the ballistas, but there was no way to get around these 3 Romans. She was running out of time. The eagles circled overhead, crying out as if to alert their brethren. "Hey, some tasty Greek demigods over here!" Annabeth couldn't see the flying chariot anymore, but she assumed it was close by. She had to figure out something before more Romans arrived. She needed help, some kind of distress signal to Coach Hedge, or even better, Percy.
"Well?"
Octavian demanded. His 2 friends brandished their swords. Very slowly, using only 2 fingers, Annabeth drew her dagger. Instead of dropping it, like Octavian asked, she tossed it as far as she could into the water. Octavian made a squeaking sound.
What was that for? I didn't say to toss it. That could have been evidence, or spoils of war."
Annabeth tried for a dumb blonde smile, like, "Oh, silly me." Nobody who knew her would have been fooled, but Octavian seemed to buy it. He huffed in exasperation.
"You other 2, he pointed his blade at Hazel and Piper. "Put your weapons on the dock. No funny bits."
All around the Romans, Charleston Harbor erupted like a Las Vegas fountain putting on a show. When the wall of seawater subsided, the 3 Romans were in the bay, spluttering and frantically trying to stay afloat in their armor. Percy stood on the dock, holding Annabeth's dagger. "You dropped this," he said, totally poker-faced. Annabeth threw her arms around him. "I love you!" "Guys!" Hazel interrupted. She had a little smile on her face. "We need to hurry." Down in the water, Octavian yelled, "Get me out of here! I'll kill you!" "Tempting," Percy called down. "What?" Octavian shouted. He was holding on to one of his guards, who was having trouble keeping them both afloat. "Nothing," Percy shouted back. "Let's go, guys." Hazel frowned. "We can't let them drown, can we?" "They won't," Percy promised. "I've got the water circulating around their feet. As soon as we're out of range, it'll spit them ashore." Piper grinned. "Nice." They climbed aboard the Argo too, and Annabeth ran to the helm. "Piper, get below. Use the sink in the galley for an iris message. Warn Jason to get back here." Piper nodded and raced off. "Hazel, go find Coach Hedge and tell him to get his furry hindquarters on deck." "Right." "And Percy, you and I need to get the ship to Fort Sumter." Percy nodded and ran to the mast. Annabeth took the helm. Her hands flew across the controls. She'd just have to hope she knew enough to operate them. Annabeth had seen Percy control full-size sailing ships before with only his willpower. This time, he didn't disappoint. Ropes flew on their own, releasing the dock ties, weighing the anchor. The sails unfurled and caught the wind. Meanwhile, Annabeth fired the engine. The oars extended with a sound like machine gun fire, and the Argo II turned from the dock, heading for the island in the distance. The 3 eagles still circled overhead, but they made no attempt to land on the ship, probably because Festus the figurehead blew fire whenever they got close. More eagles were flying in formation toward Fort Sumter, at least a dozen. If each of them carried a Roman demigod, that was a lot of enemies. Coach Hedge came pounding up the stairs with Hazel at his hooves. "Where are they?" he demanded. "Who do I kill?" No killing, Annabeth ordered. Just defend the ship.
But they interrupted a Chuck Norris movie.
Piper emerged from below. Got a message through to Jason. Kind of fuzzy, but he's already on his way. He should be... Oh, there! Soaring over the sky, heading in their direction, was a giant bald eagle, unlike the golden Roman birds. Frank! Hazel said. Leo was holding on to the eagle's feet, and even from the ship, Annabeth could hear him screaming and cursing. Behind them flew Jason, riding the wind. Never seen Jason fly before, Percy grumbled. He looks like a blonde Superman. This isn't the time, Piper scolded him. Look, they're in trouble. Sure enough, the Roman flying chariot had descended from a cloud and was diving straight at them. Jason and Frank veered out of the way, pulling up to avoid getting trampled by the Pegasi. The charioteers fired their bows. Arrows whistled under Leo's feet, which led to more screaming and cursing. Jason and Frank were forced to overshoot the Argo II and fly toward Fort Sumter.
"I'll get him!"
Coach Hedge yelled. He spun the port ballista. Before Annabeth could yell, "Don't be stupid!" Hedge fired. A flaming spear rocketed toward the chariot. It exploded over the heads of the Pegasi and threw them into a panic. Unfortunately, it also singed Frank's wings and sent him spiraling out of control. Leo slipped from his grasp. The chariot shot toward Fort Sumter, slamming into Jason. Annabeth watched in horror as Jason, obviously dazed and in pain, lunged for Leo, caught him, then struggled to gain altitude. He only managed to slow their fall. They disappeared behind the ramparts of the fort. Frank tumbled after them. Then the chariot dropped somewhere inside and hit with a bone-shattering crack. One broken wheel spun into the air. "Coach!" Piper screamed.
"What?"
Coach demanded.
"That was just a warning shot."
Annabeth gunned the engines. The hull shuddered as they picked up speed. The docks of the island were only 100 yards away now, but a dozen more eagles were soaring overhead, each carrying a Roman demigod in its claws. The Argo II's crew would be outnumbered by at least 3-1. "Percy," Annabeth said, "we're going to come in hard. I need you to control the water so we don't smash into the docks. Once we're there, you're going to have to hold off the attackers. The rest of you, help him guard the ship." "But Jason," Piper said. "Frank and Leo," Hazel added. "I'll find them," Annabeth promised. "I've got to figure out where the map is. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who can do that." "The fort is crawling with Romans," Percy warned. "You'll have to fight your way through, find our friends, assuming they're okay, find this map, and get everyone back alive. All on your own?" "Just an average day." Annabeth kissed him. "Whatever you do, don't let them take this ship.